Good day, everyone. Today I am going to discuss to you the continuation of Amar's discussion. Before anything else, let me introduce myself. I am Elsie Bindanyo, the third presenter. So let us proceed to the continuation of the discussion, which is viral disease of the nervous system. D. Related lysoviruses of encephalitis. So what is lysoviruses encephalitis? So in recent years, a few fatal cases of encephalitis that are clinically indistinguishable from classical rabies have occurred in the Australia and Scotland. That countries are considered as a free rabies. So these cases were found to be caused by genotypes of the genus, and they are closely related to the classical rabies virus, the Australian bat viruses or ABLV, and European bat viruses. So in related to viruses is it is the cause of disease rabies, in which a fatal is encephalitic disease. The Australian bat viruses is the virus endemic in Australian bats that causes invariably fatal encephalitis infections and inflammations to the brain. Yes, and uh, in the bats, humans, and other animals. So lysoviruses as well as SARS or Ebola, Hendra and Nepovirus are all known, yes, or strongly suspected to be transmitted by the bats. So there are no reasons why bats makes good disease reservoirs because there are more than 1,000 species to occupy virus niches. So they have long lived to 5 to 50 years, in which lends them stability as a reservoir. They tend to roast in close assemblies, which facilitate viral spread from, and they fly relatively long distance as they forage for food, and some even migratory. And finally, bats are seen to be able to carry viruses as long as period without clearing the infections of becoming ill. Yes, and Lysoviruses is a genus of a family Rhabdoviridae in order of the Monogavirales. Consists of a single-stranded negative sense of RNA which infect mammals and cause fatal acute encephalomyelitis known as a rabies. So here is the video about the lysoviruses, the ABLV virus, which in this video you can understand about that diseases. So here, what is the difference between lysoviruses and rabies? So rabies is an infection that affects the brain and central nervous system. Uh, Lysovirus that people usually get from a bite or scratch from infected animals, just like a bat. Yes. And what is lysovirus is caused by? So rabies virus and Australian bat lysoviruses or ABLV is belong to the group of viruses called lysoviruses. These viruses are usually transmitted via bite from the infected animal. So they are cause a similar illness known as rabies, which affects the central nervous system and is usually fatal. So how do people become infected in the Australian Batlisa versus I want you to answer that question. Next, this is the figure of how of the um, Lysa virus structure. Yes, the the Australian ABLV. As you can see, the matrix protein inside the inside the spikes, the glycoprotein, the and also the nucleocapsid, the nucleoprotein associated with the RNA polymers and phosphoprotein. So next, the phosphoprotein, the primary antigenic uh, antigenic the determinant, the antibody response, apoptosis to cells, and apoptosis to cell, microglia, and macrophages. That spikes outside to the structures of the virus. Yes. Next is the nucleoprotein, the blue one. It's encapsulates RNA, inhibits uh, RIG1 activation. The next one is polymers. Polymers are the yellow one inside the virus that it manipulates microtubules for transport and transcription for uh, replication. Next is phosphoprotein, inhibits JAK-STAT signaling, inhibits type 1 IFM responses. That also inhibits stimulated gene products. So next is matrix, is bonding, recruits RNP to membrane and condenses RNP into the bullet shape. Yes, next is arboviral encephalitis. So what is arboviral encephalitis? Here, encephalitis is an inflammation of the brain that can cause by an arthropod. It can cause by the arthropod-borne virus, or it is in short, arbovirus. It is What is arboviruses? So arboviruses can cause encephalitis that are passed to the people and animals by insects. So encephalitis are, as what I said, encephalitis caused by mosquito-borne viruses are called arboviruses, and it is rather common in United States. And arboviruses is a short for arthropod-borne virus. Yes, this terminology is represented as a functional group. It is not a formal taxonomic term, but the incidence of diseases increases in the summer month during the summer month and coinciding with the proliferations of adult muscats. Sentinel animals such as cage of the chickens are tested periodically for antibodies and to arbovirus, and this given health officials the information, incidence, and types of viruses in their area. So here are the structures about the arboviral encephalitis. The RNA, RNAvirus, flavivirus, alphavirus, minivirus, and filovirus. Next is let's focus on arboviruses. So arboviruses are the RNA that is transmitted by the black sucking to arthropods from one vertebrate to vertebrate host to another, and this virus is multiplied to arthropod without the producing disease. So the classification of our viruses are sometimes named according to the disease that they are associated with the yellow fever. So according to the yellow fever chikungunya, the local name of the disease, or after the name of the place of isolation of the virus, the Kiasenophorus disease. And the word example is the example after the geographical area is West Nile fever and St. Louis encephalitis. So here the a number of clinical types of arboviral encephalitis have been identified, and all can cause symptoms ranging from subclinical to severe, including the rapid death. And active cases of this disease are characterized by chills, headache, and fever. As the disease progresses, the mental confusion and coma can occur, and the survivors may suffer from permanent neurological problems. So, um, also, thus, the strains causing the Eastern equine encephalitis or EEE. There's it is from horse as well as to infected humans. So here also the Western equine encephalitis that can cause also. And so what about for about St. Louis encephalitis? It is acquired its name of location as an early major outbreak in which it was originally discovered from mosquitoes or involved in the transmission of this disease. So SLE is distributed from the southern Canada to Argentina, but mostly in the central and eastern United States. And next is a new arbovirus disease is now well known. Yes, it is introduced into the United States in 1999. So first reported to the New York area, it was quickly identified by being caused of West Nile viruses, which like the virus causing SLE is related to the mosquito bird cycle. The primary mosquito is a species of Culex which can overwinter as adults in temperate climates. Then birds are amplifying it can be amplifying as a host in the some species such as house sparrows and can have high levels in vermia without dying, but mortality of infected crows, ravens and blue jays is high, and public health officials is sometimes request reports of death. Yes, and some human cases of WNV is subclinical or mild, but this disease is caused in polio-like paralysis or fatal encephalitis, especially in the older adults. So next one, let's move on. So here's the video about the disease, chikungunya, dengue, or Zika virus, the viruses. And also here you can see the West Nile fever is a flu. Just stop the video and you can see what's in there. So next, yes, as I said, the arboviruses is belong to the Rhabdoviridae. Next is here the symptoms, where the first is the entry where the mosquito attack, then it will spread to our nervous system, and it can cause disease that's in encephalitis. Next is the exit of the mosquitoes are over dead, and next is the fungal disease of the nervous system. So a central nervous system is a cell dam invaded by the fungi. Over one pathogenic fungus and cryptococcus will adapted to growth in CNS fluids. So cryptococcus neoforms meningitis, cryptococcosis is one of the few exceptions of cryptococcus and novel shape yeast that can cause fungal meningitis, and there are two major species that cause disease in the humans. The first one is Cryptococcus neoforms. So um, Cryptococcus neoforms is a yeast-like fungus, is usually a thick capsule that in this uh, it is the capsule is made of visible by suspending the cells in dilute India ink, as you can see. Yes, and in recent years have been outbreaks of cryptococcus in AIDS patients in California that caused by Cryptococcus gatti, a species that have previously been reported only in tropical regions, and however the association has now been observed with the trees native of subtropical and temperate regions, as well as the fungus inhabits an ecological niche in decayed hollows of mature trees. So from there the basidiospores can contaminate surrounding soils or it can be spread with the distribution of the wood products. So this species has now been isolated in these cases of cryptococcuses. Even in otherwise healthy individuals in several areas is a in Western North America has a North or Vancouver Islands in Canada, this disease is likely to continue to spread in southward and may eventually affect areas as far as the Florida. So that's it. Again, the Sigati is also a Seniforans or Sigati is called cryptococcuses, and cryptococcuses is usually affects from the lungs to the lungs or the nervous of the central of nervous system the brain and spinal cord will affect, but it can also affect in other parts of the body, not also in that um, body parts. So next is the transmission of cryptococcal meningitis. The cryptococcus is present of almost everywhere in soil. It's just what I've said earlier. There's droppings or trees or debris. The spread may commonly occur due to the breathing of microscopic airborne spores. So the uh, symptoms include headache, fever, neck, and stiff neck or neck stiffness, and may accompanied with nausea, vomiting, increased sensitivity to light or photophobia, confusion, hallucination, or alternation in mental status and behavioral changes. So the diagnosis of cryptococcal meningitis is clinical signs and physical examination reveals with the typical signs of meningitis. Kailangan merong mga sample or examinations that can be approved, so that kanang it can it can the doctors or the um the so that it can cure. They can also know the disease that may cause. Yes. Next is how is new Sinopharm's infection diagnosed? According to the healthcare providers, it relies on your medical history, symptoms, physical examinations, and laboratory tests to diagnose the new forms infections. So here is the figure about where it where it can take a damage on your in our human body or in our nervous system also. So the diagnosis and the treatment is before the disease can be treated, a positive diagnosis is required and must often yeast cells are observed microscopically and samples of mucus or spinal fluid. Recently, blood tests that identify antibodies and cryptococcus have been used to provide more accurate diagnosis. So the prevention of cryptococcal meningitis is causative fungal organisms that is present in the soil in everywhere, avoiding to the soil and environment that can be contaminated. That it can also may help in preventing cryptococcal infections to some extent. So the remember that the person with HIV infections is need to avoid exposure as much as possible. So next is the protozoan disease in our nervous system. So protozoa is capable of invading the CNS are rare. However, those that can reach it cause devastating effects. So what are the effects? So first is the African trypanosomiasis. So what is African trypanosomiasis? It is also known as sleeping sickness. It's caused by a microscopic parasites or of a species, the Trypanosoma bronchia. It is transmitted by the chichu fly in Glossina species, which is found only in sub-Saharan Africa. So, this disease is caused by two subspecies. That's what I've said. Yes, the trypanosoma bronchi and that affect in the human. Trypanosoma bronchi gambiense, and that's it. Bronchi gambiense, the humans that can affect the human. The trypanosoma bronchi rhodesiense is it can affect on the animals. Yes, and they are morphologically indistinguishable but differ significantly in their epidemiology, that is, in their ability to infect non-human hosts. So humans are only the significant of reservoir to TB given, whereas so what I've said earlier, the TB rhodesiense is a parasite of domestic livestock and many wild animals. So these protozoans are flagellates and they are spread in chichi fly vectors. So TB gambiense is transmitted by chichi flies that inhabits stream vegetation where there are also concentrations of human population, and it is distributed throughout West and Central Africa, and it is sometimes termed with a term West African trypanosomiasis. There are more than 97 97% of reported cases in humans are of this type. So since it is found also in 1907 in Western Churchill, yes, in Western and in Africa, no, in Uganda. It described in epidemic of sleeping sickness as a beautiful garden of death. Here is the video presenting about how it can affect, uh, how it can, how we can prevent to, to it. So what are the symptoms also? So here are the first one is trypanosomiasis. Yes, so you can see it's so blurry. So that chichi fly can attack to the human. Next is kanang mag next is uh, mag kuan ang kanang chichi fly ay kanang ang virus kuan siya mag duplicate into two, so managhan siya, so it can cause disease na dayon. So how does the immune system respond to the invaders? The acquired immune system with the help from the innate system makes special proteins called antibodies to protect our body from the specific invaders. So what are the signs and symptoms of East African trypanosomiasis? So as I've said, it is 90%, 97% reported cases in human types. So once the persons become infected, so there are few symptoms of weeks or months. Eventually, the chronic form of disease, which fever, headaches, and variety of symptoms develop that indicates the involvement and deterioration of CNS or coma and death are inevitable without effective treatment. Yes. So can African sleeping sickness can be cured? Yes, can be cured. But we need to we need to can be cured because there are in 1992 there's a new drug which iflonitine was introduced that crosses of blood and brain barrier and blocks of enzymes that required for proliferation of the parasites, that it's required extended series of the injection, but it is dramatically effective against even late stages of TB gambiense, that it has called restriction of drugs. So next is the amoebic meningoencephalitis or PAM. So there are two species of the protozoa that can cause amoebic meningoencephalitis, which are both found in recreational water. The recreational fresh water, the human exposures to them are apparently widespread. So in many in the population carry antibodies. Unfortunately, the symptomatic disease is rare. The first one is Naegleria fowleri, or colloquially uh, known as the brain-eating amoeba, is a species of the genus Naegleria belonging to the phylum Precolozoa, which is technically not classified as true amoeba, but a shape-shifting amoeba flagellate excavate. The symptoms may include headache, fever, nausea, or vomiting, and later the symptoms may include stiff neck, confusion, lack of attention to the people and surroundings, seizures, and hallucinations, and coma. So here are the effects. The figure. First one is the cyst stage. Third one is trophozoite stage, and the third one is flagellated stage. So diha na magsugod na magkasakit ang people. So the this it is the fatality rate is nearly 100% death occurring within the few days after the symptoms appear because of the rarity of the disease, and there is low index of suspicion, and also the symptoms resemble those encephalitis caused by other and more common pathogens. So diagnosis is typically made at autopsy, and they have been a very few survivors have found that they are treated with the combinations of several antibiotics. So the most common victims are, remember, the most common victims of the Naegleria fowleri is the children who swim in the warm ponds and streams. Here is the video showing how Naegleria fowleri can affect our nervous system. So how is Naegleria fowleri treated? So what I've said is the antifungal amphotericin B, and some survivors in North America were treated with a combination of drugs that include amphotericin B, rifampin, fluvicanzole, and the drug called miltefosine. So what next is acanthamoeba. This cause is neurological disease in granulomatous amoebic encephalitis, and acanthamoebic keratitis is a rare but serious infection of the eye that can result in permanent visual impairment or blindness. So what is acanthamoeba enter to the eye? How does? So the infection of the eye occurs when the acanthamoeba organisms contained with the water or the contact lens hindi pala safe sa atin ang contact lens solution to enter the eye, because mararami tayong makukuha scrapes that can cause contact lens, merong mga minor eye injuries yes, and this is how can affect our eyes. So next is the nervous system that caused by prions. So there are several diseases affecting the human central nervous system that are caused by prions. To explain the term prion, we need to recall the discussion of the enzyme. So a certain protein is normally found in the surface of brain cell neurons, and is even found in the surface or certain stem cells in red bone marrow and cells that become neurons. So let's call it normal protein. Its function is uncertain, but there is evidence that it may guide maturation of the nerve cells. So certainly the protein's shape causes no damage, but this protein can assume there are two folded shapes. One is normal and other is the abnormal. So the normal protein encounters an abnormal folded. If the abnormal protein encounter the abnormal folded protein, it makes a prion a prion, the normal protein changes its shapes and also become the abnormal. The normal, it becomes abnormal folded. That is the another prion. In fact, a chain reaction is protein misfolding occurs. So therefore, a single infected prion to cascade may lead to cascade of new prions which then clumps together to form the fibril aggregations of misfolded proteins that are found in diseased brains. So the autopsy infected brain tissue is shows that exhibit characteristics of spongiforms, or it is porous or like a sponge. So here the different prions cause disease affects in different regions of the brain: the cerebral cortex, the thalamus, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. The transmissible of spongiform encephalitis is a parenthesis are family of rare progressive neurodegenerative brain disorders that affect both humans and animals. So the first one is shape. So there are the signs and symptoms. Next is the shape scrapie is a fatal and degenerative disease affecting the central nervous system of the sheep and goats. So it is the typical prions in the animals which have been long known in the Great Britain and made it the first appearance in the United States in 1947. The infected animal scrapes itself against fences and walls until areas of its body are raw. During a period of several weeks or months, the animal gradually loses motor controls and dies. So here is the video showing the shape scrapie. Next is the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or CJD. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is the degenerative brain disorder caused by misfolded prion proteins, which is destroy the brain cells. This disease is rapidly progressive and leads to death within 1 year or onset the illness. So next is the prions disease by Coro. It is affecting some human tribes in New Guinea. The transmission of Coro is apparently related in practice of cannibalistic rituals, which is not good for the health of the people. The Carleton Judge Dusik received the Nobel Prize of Psychology in Medicine in 1976 for his investigations of Coro. The disease is disappearing as the practice of ritualistic cannibalism that dies out. Next is bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or the variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob TSE is the more is the that is much in use in bovine spongiform. This disease is better known as a mad cow disease because of the behavior of the animals. The outbreak that began in the 1986 in Great Britain also, and it was eventually controlled by drastic culling in herbs. The origin of disease is usually ascribed to feed supplements in containing meat and bone meal contaminated with prions from sheep infected with the scrapie and long endemic neurological disease. Another hypothesis processes that BSE resulted from spontaneous mutation in a cow and that there is no connection with the scrape. So there is the need urgent reliable test that will diagnose cases of BSA in early uh, non-symptomatic stages in live animals. So currently, the only available test required is post-mortem brain tissues to detect only the late stages of the disease. So here is the background. The causes, the signs and symptoms: tremor, unsteady gait, ataxia, muscle jerks, pain in the upper and lower extremities, difficulty of walking, slurred speech, headache, dementia, difficulty of swallowing, dysphagia, or can lead to the malnutrition and coma. So next is, let's go on for the disease caused by unidentified agent. hindi natin alam kung ano. But for the first one example is chronic fatigue syndrome. It is also called myalgic encephalomyelitis, and explain fatigue that lasts at 6 months or 4 months of these symptoms: the sore throats, tender lymph nodes, muscle pain, pain in multiple joints, headaches, unrefreshing sleep, malaise after exercise, impaired short term of memory, and concentration. So, mm, there are the symptoms of myalgic encephalomyelitis or the chronic fatigue syndrome. The cognitive impairments, the in head, the swollen glands, headache, sore throat. There are the cognitive impairment, common additional symptoms, and the symptoms that needs to diagnose is cognitive impairment in the head, autostatic intolerance in the sa dapi-dapi, no, sa and exertional malaise, manghihina, then unrefreshing sleep, new fatigue on to 6 months. So there are the diagnosis: the physical exam, complete blood count, CDC symptoms, inventory of CFS, hindi madaling magkasakit. This sleep assessment questionnaire, Wood mental fatigue inventory, Hermes pain assessment tool. Next is how you treating chronic fatigue syndrome. First one, try over-the-counter therapies like sleep aids in typical pain relievers. The doctors may prescribe medication like antimicrobials or antidepressants. The lifestyle you need is to change, like eating healthier, improve sleeping habits, or switching your jobs. And some people have reported success the alternative medicine. The therapy and counseling can address in psychological effects of chronic fatigue syndrome. So I think that's all, and I hope you all learn, and God bless.